Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Fisher, Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I've moved to bring this meeting to order. It is, what day is it? September 19th, 2023, and 8 a.m. First item on the agenda is, excuse me, the approval of meeting minutes on August 15th, 2023. Any comments or questions?
Motion approval. To approve.
Okay, and there's a second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed? Same sign. Motion approved. Second item on the agenda is the review of 508, excuse me, 4th Street South, Jefferson Overlay Historic District.
14th.
Did I say 14th?
14th.
14th Street South, sorry, in the Jefferson neighborhood. Brad?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brad Garcia with the City or Fargo Planning and Development. For our first item on the agenda is 508 14th Street South. Here's just an aerial image of the property, and that's between 5th and 6th Avenue South. Here's 5th Avenue South, 6th Avenue, and then 14th Street here. And with this, the applicant is requesting an exterior remodel and a new foundation and reconstruction of a portion of the porch. This floor plan here is showing the foundation addition that the applicant has already started with a foundation permit. And here's some renderings of the existing property, and then what the owner is, or what the contractor for the owner has prepared for the final result. With this, they're preparing to restore the front porch with traditional columns versus the wrapped columns that are as of today, or were of this past summer. And then also they're planning on doing new siding around the entire home. Originally they had a previous permit back in June that resided the original, which was this home right here. This is what it kind of looked like before that 2022 permit for the siding. That was all vinyl, and the homeowner changed their mind, and so the current proposal is to remove everything on the exterior of the home and then replace it with 4-inch fiber cement lap siding. And then also to remove the roof and reconstruct the roof, and then also adding an addition of a knee wall to give the attic space a little bit more functionality and room to be like I think it was a bedroom that's being proposed. And the overall height of the building will be reconstructed to meet the land development code height. So it's just going to kind of, they'll assess that as they reconstruct everything and then make sure that meets during their inspections. Then the permit history, again, as I mentioned, 2022, it was issued for replacing the siding in the windows. This past June, a building permit was issued for interior work. So basically tearing down to the studs, reconfiguring some of the walls, and then updating some of the electrical and plumbing to meet current code. And then in this August, a foundation permit was issued to make an addition to that foundation as previously shown. And then with that, they did stabilize the porch to reconstruct that foundation as the top of the porch would be the base of the ceiling of the foundation. So that's why they kind of stabilized that porch to do that foundation work. And then again, they'll reconstruct it as shown in the rendering here. Tom Spath with Accent Kitchen and Bath is with us today to answer any of the commissioners' questions. Otherwise, pending any questions, that completes staff's presentation.
Before we get to questions, I want to just make everyone aware that this property is on a block that I live in a historic overlay district, the Jefferson Neighborhood Association. Mr. Spath, on behalf of the owner, actually contacted our neighborhood association to come out and present these plans. And we did meet with him last Friday. We did not have a quorum, so we couldn't vote to approve, but we came away from that meeting with a very favorable opinion of the project, and we appreciate the fact that his client is willing to invest in our neighborhood. So with that said, I am prepared to recuse myself from further discussion and the vote on this if the commission wishes.
I guess I don't know if I need to prove that, but I appreciate that. And I think because we have enough people for a quorum outside of it, thank you for recusing yourself. Appreciate it. Any other comments or questions?
What is the lap, the concrete?
Fiber lap siding?
It's a fiber cement, it's a composite material. It's meant to mimic wood.
That does it?
Yeah,
A lot better than vinyl.
much better than,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. I guess I have a question about, have you started demolishing the porch? Is it totally gone already?
Again, I think the applicant can also add to this, but from my understanding is the roof has been stabilized of the porch,
Okay,
but the foundation, the decking and everything has been removed, or like what the original foundation was removed.
okay,
So all that remains today is the roof in its current state.
okay. I was just curious if they found any original railing behind what was originally hidden behind all that siding. There was nothing. Okay.
No.
I guess my only comment would be, right now you have, which is nice to see, some columns, and maybe my recommendation would just be columns going all the way down to the floor decking instead of just halfway. It seems like a little thing, but historically, typically it's gonna run all the way, and then just an open railing. That would be my comment. Otherwise, I really appreciate all the work, the general work and investment going into this property.
I have some comments, and in the end, I would like to suggest a different solution to the project. But perhaps a bit of back, by the way, is the homeowner here or just the contractor? Okay, well, that's unfortunate. But this house has a fair pedigree because it was designed by an architect named Milton Earl Beebe, who was a fairly prominent architect about 1900, 1910 in Fargo. And he designed actually 5 identical houses here. There are 3 in this row. And there's one about a block away on University Drive that's fairly intact in its historic character. And there are also 2 on the north side of Fargo, identical houses. They are part of a Milton Earl Beebe Historic District on the National Register of Historic Places. These houses are not. But perhaps just as a background to the recommendation I'll make is, first of all, this is in the Jefferson Historic Overlay District. There are 8 of them in Fargo Historic Overlay Districts. And just as a reminder, the purpose of the historic overlay districts is to maintain and preserve a neighborhood architectural character. And when you think about all of the new subdivisions in South Fargo, for example, all of them that I know of, all of the subdivisions have homeowner organizations and covenants that very strictly restrict what one can do with one's house. I mean, down to what color you can paint it and what you can plant in your garden and so on. Those are private covenants. In the Historic Overlay District, though, it is a matter for the Historic Preservation Commission, and we don't regulate what you can plant in your garden and so on. But the principle is the same, to maintain the character of the neighborhood for the benefit of all of the residents. The issue here is that you want to increase the space in the house. And the problem on the 3rd floor of these houses is that you can't stand up all the way to the edge of the house because there's a knee wall and the steeply pitched roof. But my point is that in a solution here, it's really important to preserve and respect the architectural integrity of the neighborhood. And the challenge for me is to conform with the ordinance 5184, the Jefferson overlay, section 1, subsection A, subparagraph A, subparagraph 2, which says, the relationship of the width of the principal building to the height of the front elevation must be visually compatible with historic structures within the Jefferson Neighborhood Historic Overlay District. So what is this compatibility? Well, if we look at these houses, actually the picture on the screen shows on the left, as I'm looking at the screen, the house, at least in form, in its original condition, which is a 10/12 roof over 2 full stories. And that sets up a certain architectural relationship of integrity for houses from this period. Houses from every period have their own architectural integrity. This happens to be the house, actually in its current form, represents the architectural integrity of the houses from this period, about 1907 or so. And so there's a certain proportion to this architecture that is really important. A triangle gable over 2 full stories. It gives the house a very pleasant aspect to look at. You've seen houses that you look at them and say, this is just terrible, because they've been remodeled in a way that does not respect the original architectural integrity. And the problem that I see is that your proposed 5-foot bump up spells trouble for the architectural integrity of this house and the neighboring houses and the neighborhood. Unlike siding, where in 20 years you can take the siding off and when that goes out of style and put something new, this reconstruction will be permanent and last forever. So I am concerned about the diminishing of the architectural integrity of this house and the houses in this neighborhood from that period. So I would like to suggest a different solution. Realizing that the owner wants to increase the usable space on the 3rd floor. There is a similar house in the Milton Earl Beebe Historic District on the north side, where the owner a number of years ago, whenever it was, wanted also more space on the 3rd floor. And therefore, they constructed a large dormer that allows you to walk over to the edge of the house, but it does not come up to the front of the house, which leaves that triangular gable over 2 stories of the architectural integrity of this style of house, leaves it intact. And so that is actually the solution I would like to propose. Matter of fact, if you'd like, I can show you the example that I'm thinking of, if you would, if the commission is interested in this idea, to show how that solution respects the architectural integrity of the house as you see it from the street, which is our concern here, and yet allows the homeowner additional space on the 3rd floor. It doesn't give you all the space that you're looking for with this solution, but perhaps 2/3 of it. It'll be much cheaper to do, and it will respect the architectural integrity of the house and the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any follow-up comments or questions?
I would say that I had a similar thought to you. There is a house that was a similar kind of situation that you're talking about, 1337 8th Street South, where they did add dormers on both sides, which increased the whole area of the 2nd floor and the headspace across, just as a point of interest in case they wanted to consider something like that. But I just thought I'd bring up that example.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd have to agree with Paul. As much as any historic building it is of the moment, is also something that we need to learn to live with and build into something better if we're not going to keep it as is. I feel this 5-foot knee wall is going to make it significantly taller in appearance to the street, and all the adjacencies would definitely seem out of place, or this would seem out of place comparatively. I think Paul's solution to the dormer would be a good solution, and also keeping the character of the woodwork trim on the exterior, trying to blend into the neighborhood more so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, is there a motion?
Commissioner, did you want to have, sorry, did
Yeah.
you want to have the applicant, so you're making the suggestion that they would have the dormer on approval based on the dormer, or?
Well, I think right now we would just have to approve or not the existing package. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then if it's not approved, make recommendations, and
Okay.
you can correct me if I'm wrong with any of that. Is that,
That's fine.
The
Okay.
applicant isn't here.
there's a representative, so I think we just make a motion to approve or not this one and move forward from there. Okay, so
Okay.
is there a motion to, let's say,
I suppose I'll make a motion to approve the project as presented.
okay, is there a second to make a motion as presented?
I second the motion as presented.
Okay. Just make sure we're correct here. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Those approved, or those opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, so motion is not approved. So from the next motion would be to table this and with a recommendation of looking at maybe the dormer addition instead of what's
Well,
proposed?
It's been denied, so there's no need to table it. The idea would, I think.
With the recommendation, though, that they come back with the, maybe looking at some of the dormers and add that to the next.
Oh, yeah, recommend a
Approval.
solution that doesn't change the front facade of the property.
Right, okay.
Can the applicant?
Yes.
Respond?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Morning, Commissioners. Tom Spaeth with Accent Kitchen and Bath here. The only thing I want to just talk about a little bit, with the dormers, I'm not opposed to doing that by any means. I think it could be a real good look. But one thing we are up against is we do have a gutted house. We have no furnace in it. We're up against the, time frame of freeze up, all that stuff. And we would like to get going on at least some of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing in the house so we can get it back, so we can get heat in it before it gets too cold. As far as getting a new rendering and stuff for approval, would we have to wait a full month then to get that done? Or how would that work?
We've done that before. We've had a quick turnaround on approval. And that'd be something that planning would have to have the conversation with you with.
Yeah, we have expedited things before, so I think we can figure something out with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
That sounds good. I'll do my best then to get some renderings of, and we would probably go for putting a dormer on each side
Right.
is what we'd look at to max out as much space as we could up there.
I would recommend looking at 1337 8th Street to see how they did it, because they did it it fits in with the house very well. It doesn't change the front facade. They added a lot of space on the second floor, almost continuously from about maybe 10 feet back all the way to the back of the house.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Well, and please extend our gratitude for reaching out to the Jefferson district as well. We really appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
I don't think that the issue here has to do with the mechanical and electrical in the house. Is that correct? You can continue on that.
I think we just wants to make sure that it's approved.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Chair, you could, maybe Brad can offer his suggestion too.
If it's all right with the commissioners, I think you could, for expediting the process, approve with a condition that the new the new renderings would show the dormer on both sides. And if you wanted to create like a stipulation on the roof pitch of the dormer or the height, or, I mean, we could
Okay.
possibly consider that as well.
I think it would be important for this commission to review the renderings of the new dormer before we actually approve it. I think that's the only concern I would have, that if we approve this conditional on the dormer and don't know what it's going to look like and so on, then we're not assured, I think, of the solution that we would approve. So that would be my only stipulation, is that we approve the form of the dormers.
Okay.
Correct me if
Excuse
we're
me.
wrong, I do believe there was a portion, or there was an applicant who came back with a solution after the fact, and that was actually done just over the email.
That was done over email.
During COVID times, so that was a little bit extenuating circumstances, but I think we can make something happen quickly.
If I could interject, you
Yeah.
could make a motion that conditioned on final approval so that he knows that a dormer would be considered as something acceptable to this commission. I don't know that you'd have a vote on that yet, just to confirm that that would be something that he could rely on in moving forward and making those plans. And then for final approval by this commission.
So that he can keep moving on everything else but that.
Correct.
Actually, I'll make that motion that we approve the project subject to final approval of the dormer.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So motion approved. Thank you very much.
Tom, how soon could you have those elevations back to us to look at?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We'll be watching for it.
Thank you. Okay. The second item on the agenda is 1111 7th Street South in the Erskine Overlay District.
Okay, commissioners, for item number 2,
Sorry, excuse me, Brad. I'd like to recuse myself as a member of the commission, as I'll be speaking on behalf of the owner on the project as a member of the public. So,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
again, item number 2 is located in the Erskine's historic overlay between 7th Street South and 8th Street South on the west side, 11th Avenue South on the north, and then 12th Avenue South on the south side. With this application, the applicant is requesting to demolish a portion of the rear of the home and to construct an addition. And here is a site plan that kind of shows the footprint of the existing home and then the portion of the addition that would happen in the rear. And there's also a small deck that's existing, which would also be removed, and then a new deck being built as shown. Some of the floor plans on the main level, again, just kind of taking that back and kicking it out to allow for a larger kitchen, mudroom, and laundry. And then in the second level, again, just creating a master suite with an ensuite. And then some of the renderings of the exterior renderings show that the exterior will be complete, from my understanding, completely new material between cement, fiber cement, ephes siding, and then I believe some stucco panels as well. I kind of highlight or outline the portions that would be new compared to the existing structure in some of these elevations. Again, this is looking south. And then here is the west elevation, looking at the rear of the home. And then also the north elevation, and just showing how the different materials kind of are combined together with the facade. Some of the existing photos of the home, again, outlining the portions that will be demolished. Again, here's that deck, that existing deck that would be removed, and then this portion of the home in the back, which I believe is an existing kitchen that then would be kicked out, and then that second level would be added with the addition. And just some of the photos of the neighborhood context for reference. And again, the applicant is represented by Mike Dawson with Craftwell, and he's available to answer any questions. Pending any questions with staff, that completes our presentation.
Thank you, Brad.
Brad, I have a question. Are we approving an addition today that's already existing?
No, it's an expansion.
It is existing. Yep.
So
Nearly
the photos
completed.
show demolition of an addition to the house. That's already gone, and the new addition is already constructed.
So that is correct, Jay. As we're the architect on the project, speaking on behalf of the owner and the contractor, the project, or the reason it's becoming to the board, is a recommendation after one that was probably made a year and a half ago when the project started, to reiterate the need for a certificate of appropriateness. The project was approved without one. There was a building permit application that was submitted, it was granted, it was issued, and the project started. I think that's part of a larger discussion, obviously. The reason that we're here today is that during the construction of the addition, as the contractor was tying into the existing house, and I think you can see it from the photos. I mean, the stucco is in complete disrepair. It started crumbling and breaking off from the house, and so I made the recommendation to just kind of hold off on any future work that pertains to the existing house until we have this discussion here. We've got a proposal for a complete siding replacement that wasn't anticipated when the project started, of course. And so as part of the discussion, just wanted to have a conversation about what would be appropriate. Unfortunately, stucco, actual real stucco, has become increasingly expensive. It's probably at the highest level of cost in terms of siding, and not only that, there are very, very, very few people in Fargo-Moorhead that can actually perform that work. Probably one or two, which is, again, unfortunate, and also part of a larger discussion. And so just wanted to think of a way, relating to the surrounding context, due to the scope and size of the project, to come up with a solution that is appropriate, relatively cost effective, and wouldn't prohibit, spending money on other areas of the house. For example, all of the windows that have been replaced thus far and in anticipation of being replaced are actually aluminum clad wood, simulated divided light, with a spacer bar, which means that the mullions are actually on the outside and the inside. There's a spacer bar in the glass to mimic individual panes. So, the intent of the project, the attitude is they want to do a really nice job. However, the true stucco piece would be a deal breaker, and probably keep a few kids from going to college, but that's another discussion. So yes, the addition has been built, and so we're here to talk about the project as a whole.
Got it, and I appreciate that, and we'll get into the details. It looks like a great project, but this is part of the issue that I had at the last meeting where a building permit, I'm looking at the application for certificate of appropriateness, which states no building permits for new construction or for alterations to the exterior of existing structures shall be issued for property within a historic overlay district until the certificate of appropriateness has been reviewed and approved, blah, blah, blah. So as far as I know, we never approved that at this level, but it can be approved at the city level. So the question is, was it approved and why?
Yes, this application was a building permit that came under the historic overlay review with the standard process in our department. With the work being completed in the rear of the home, it was assessed or reviewed that was not triggered by the historic overlay requirement. And that was one of my very first reviews in this process as well. I personally reviewed that. And with this coming back to us for another review, with the change of the materials and the facade around the entire building, that's staff felt like, especially with the change in the addition and then with the facade around the building, that it would warrant a full review by the Historic Preservation Commission.
I appreciate that. And I'm not looking for a villain. I'm looking for a procedure that is predictable for the public and for this commission. And right now we have two big issues within the historic overlay district. One is that we issue building permits without the certificate of appropriateness, which is what happened in this case. And I don't know how that commission feels about the city approving it without having it come to us, but I have a little bit of an issue with that. The second is the certificate of appropriateness being issued and then the work commencing and not being done to the extent that it was explained to us. So those are sidebar issues for now, and that's part of the bigger discussion. And I really want to get back to your project to keep you on timeline. So
I agree, Jay.
thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I would say only regarding this specific project, I think the solution you're proposing is a good one. I certainly understand the issue with stucco. And I think the view from the street, the front elevation of the house, I think, really, the proposed changes really conform to the historic character of the house. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I took a look at, originally what this was, the style was, because it's a hodgepodge right now. And it's a prairie style. So I think you're doing it justice exactly with the details that you're adding.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Vote to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign? All right, motion is
Thank you,
approved.
Commission.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is 1202 8th Street South in the Erskine Historic Overlay District.
Commissioners, our last certificate of appropriateness application, as mentioned, 1202 8th Street South, and that is located also in the Erskine's historic overlay in Hawthorne neighborhood, and that is between it's on 8th Street South, and then also is on a corner property of 12th Avenue South. And this project will look familiar as this was presented a couple months ago for a new garage addition or adding to an existing garage. And the applicant is in front of us today to request that the original approval was based on single door or single car doors. And with further work being done and kind of seeing how the foundation was constructed, that it would be cost prohibitive to create the structure for individual garage doors and is requesting that one of the garage doors be 16 feet and then the other one being 9 feet. And then here's the floor plan that shows that layout. And I think in the original discussion, that they had those two elevation drawings in the original permit or request for the double stall garage door. But again, commissioners, you know, the recommendation was to have the single car garage doors if it was feasible. Applicants, you know, agreed to that. And then again, upon that more work, that they just found that the project wouldn't be feasible. So the applicant contractor, Scott Doms, is with us today to answer any of the commissioners' questions. Pending any questions with staff, that completes the presentation.
Thank you, Brad.
I guess I have a question. So is this two stall or this double door is going in the existing part of the building, correct?
Correct.
That's currently two single doors. Can I ask why there's the change?
Okay, so the two single doors, we were gonna go with 8-foot doors, I believe, on the original ones, but we just can't fit cars in there. The bigger issue is when the garage was originally built, they did such a good job at building the foundation that the stem walls that come up 12 inches or so into the garage and then go down several feet. We would have to demolish, in order to get the roof and everything off, we'd have to demolish almost 3/4 of the garage just to get that footing out, and which would include more concrete, more labor. It'd essentially be taking the whole garage down at one point, because we would be kind of compromising the structural integrity of it. And then just the 8-foot garage doors, you just can't fit cars in there anymore. People can't fit their cars in there. So we kind of tossed it around and tried to get it to work, and we just figured that for the client it would cost over at least $10,000 more just to do all single garage doors.
And also destroy most of the original garage.
Destroy an original Rosati. You know, I mean, we're already kind of beating it up, which is, you know, nothing. You know, it's tough to do because he's a pretty well-known architect in town.
I think. Oh, sorry. In the original design that we approved, were those doors being moved?
Yeah,
from where they are now.
Okay,
so
because if you look at the original design where we actually put a stem wall, because we had to put an intermediate wall in there just to carry the load, so our TGI joist wouldn't get so deep, and that's just not possible. I mean, we could do it. Anything's possible, but we doing the new design, we reuse the old exterior wall without moving it for that bearing wall.
Okay, I think that was my confusion. Was I didn't realize the original, because we don't have the original plan here. I don't think I didn't know that was not utilizing the existing garage door openings. That was my confusion.
Yeah, we were rebuilding the whole front facade at that point. I mean, we're bumping it out, so we're doing that anyways. But and we were going to try to just get a clear space inside, but it's becoming just too cost prohibitive.
Scott, is there a reason that you just didn't tear the old garage down and build a new garage?
Cost is one of them.
Okay.
Two, it's just, I mean, by the time you tear that down and do everything, you're in we're already at like $70,000. The way it is, we're going to be pushing 120 easy if we were to tear that down and try to recreate it.
So we approved I believe it was an elevation that did it have 3 8-foot doors? Was that what we approved previously? Correct. And I assume a certificate of appropriateness was issued for that.
Correct.
And then you pulled a building permit on September 8th. Yep. And what I saw yesterday when I looked at it, what's being built there is not what we approved.
It's not what you approved at the moment.
Yep. So I just want to make sure everyone on this commission is aware of that we approved something and a permit was issued for that, and then there's a deviation from that. So
I think part of, I think any project that's done with over our historic overlay or any old buildings, right? There's a can of worms. You start doing one thing and it's a ripple effect. And a lot of this you can't fully know until you get your hands in it. I really do appreciate that we're not just looking from a demolition from the get-go, and that the homeowners are looking for a more creative way than just demolishing and starting from scratch. I think they inherently understand the craft and quality of what is there and is existing. It takes more time and effort to figure out a solution like this. So I do appreciate that level of concern, especially for Rosati.
I would agree. I think that you have made a good effort to address our concerns and found that it is unfeasible to do. I am concerned about beginning construction at variance with what we approved. However, that procedurally is an issue. I would be inclined to support an approval of the project as you're showing it today. But I have a question because the ordinance says any garage door visible from the street shall not exceed 10 feet in width. Can we authorize a variance from the ordinance?
Yes, a commission can or authorize a variance of the historic overlay.
How much wider is it?
It's so it's 16. It's a 16 and a 9 for the two ones.
I do believe the house across the street has similar.
Yeah, it has a 16. Yeah, because we originally brought that up with the original proposal. And
When was that garage constructed?
apparently that's original, but I didn't look into it too much. But
Okay, because this historic overlay has only been in place since 2015, so anything prior to that would be grandfathered in. So having been through this process in my own neighborhood in 2017, where we established a historic overlay, which is not an easy task, but it did not come down from on high. These are citizens that decided to establish a geographic area and define the standards and inventory all of the properties within that area in terms of style of construction and date of construction and current condition and any unusual architectural aspects, and put all of that into a database and go to the planning commission and get approved, and go to the city commission and get approved. And we voluntarily did that ourselves. And so if we're going to start, there's room for interpretation here. I get that. But if the neighborhood has established and voluntarily established a certain set of standards, then I think we need to tread very carefully if we're going to change those standards. I'd be curious in 2015 why they decided that a garage door should not be any wider than 10 feet. And if people in that neighborhood still feel strongly about that. I understand that cars get bigger. I understand that 2024 is a different year than 1924. But if I'm going to put work and time into establishing a historic overlay district in my neighborhood, then I think it's really up to the commission to honor that and be very careful about making changes to it. When I read the Erskine overlay, there's nothing in here about economic feasibility. In other words, we will make an exception to these standards because it costs you more. It doesn't say anything like that anywhere. And so that's part of living in a historic neighborhood, I think, is that when you purchase property in a historic neighborhood and you make improvements to it, you understand that you are being held to a higher obligation. And so I would not vote in favor of this.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Commissioners, if I can just point out, and I appreciate those comments, yes, there is development standards. I just want to call to your attention, Mr. Garcia's comment that there is an opportunity for a variance that is provided for in the ordinances. It's to allow for a variance of hardships that may arise from a strict application of any of the foregoing special development standards. This commission would need a 2/3 vote in order to approve that variance from that standard, which is a 10-foot restriction on the door. Thank you.
You know, I would move to approve the application and approve a variance from the 10-foot wide garage door requirement on the basis that this is an accessory structure and that it not set a precedent for any future variances.
Right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nope.
All right, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, Department of Work for updates and a follow-up of September board discussion.
Hi, Commission. Good morning. My name is Nicole Crutchfield. I'm the Planning Director. I think I know everybody here. But I just wanted to piggyback on our follow-up on some of the good discussion you had at the last September board, or last August board meeting regarding, and I heard some of those questions today in terms of process, protocol, kind of those operational pieces. I guess what I heard from the meeting, watching the replay, was a lot of good discussion on kind of goals, objectives, priorities, and how to integrate that into predictable processes. As you know, this, depending which overlay we're talking about, but some of these standards in our ordinance are, good 20 years old. Some of the procedures are 20 years old. We're in a new era with online permitting, things like that. And what I wanted to propose is something we're doing with a lot of our boards and commissions is work on getting some work sessions for those that might be interested. Certainly not a requirement for board members, but one of the things that we tend to do when we have change happening or needing is doing subcommittees or work groups. And so that's one of the things I'd like to talk to you about further, maybe setting up some times to meet to talk through that. Some of you may remember probably about 6 years ago when we were trying to do land development code updates on residential standards in our in all of our single family neighborhoods. But also particularly on the core neighborhood. So this is about 6 to 8 years ago. We called it Land Development Code Update Committee. There's a lot of discussion about garages, heights of doors, things like that. We kind of stalled out, and I can go through a whole history of what's been happening in the planning department for the last 6 or 7 years. But I won't bore that with you today. So that's one of the things I wanted to suggest about moving forward. I'm going to meet with Heather. So some protocols that we tend to do now with our boards and commissions that maybe haven't been kind of firmly put in place, but I became director about 5 years ago, maybe. And so one of the things that I suggest is, because I don't know if there's a vice chair of the board, but, we try to have, kind of an overview of bylaws, chair and vice chair, which kind of start to set the tone of an executive committee. And so there's some pre-work of agendas before the meeting actually happens. I think one of the things that's been pointed out is this board is very much a working board where you're looking at applications, and that's certainly your primary business. However, if change needs to happen or operations or feedback, then sometimes it's good to work collectively as we develop these topics and discussion items collaboratively on an agenda. And so just wanted to kind of let you know we heard you. We know there's a lot of kind of maybe discussion on incentives or teeth or enforcement. We've been having that discussion for a while, which gives me segue into maybe some of our work priorities. So there's a lot of questions on the growth plan, and first, I wanted to introduce Kim Satrowski back here. Some of you may have known Erin Nelson, our long-range planner. Kim Satrowski, some of you might know Kim Satrowski when she worked with us back. I think she left in 2011 to work across the river, and she's come back as our long-range planner, and trained as an architect as well. And So with our growth plan, one of the things that makes it unique on the growth plan is this is our first ever citywide future land use plan. So typically our growth plans have been talking about the greenfield development, what's on the edge of where some of those pressure points are for growth. With the core neighborhood plan that some of you were involved in, and the work in our kind of citywide, as we get bigger, it's going to be harder to develop and or meet all the values of our community. And so one of the main issues or needs we have in that is a future land use plan. That future land use plan helps present predictability in our core neighborhoods and citywide. And so that's really a point of the growth neighborhood plan. The reason our consultant, so we're working with CZB. Some of you might remember them from the core neighborhoods plan process. The reasons they were selected in the RFP process was with their team, they're also bringing zoning code experts. And so early fall, we'll be working on a RFP to rewrite our code. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's a good, $500,000 investment of at least with 3 to 5 years of work, stakeholder input, development. So it's again, not for the faint of heart. So the point of it is, once we get the growth plan, I'll come back to the growth plan, the land development code. In my tenure here at the city, this will be the first time ever we have all the tools we need for land development applications and predictability and process in ordinance. So as we grow bigger and become more of a big city, these are the tools we need. And right now, I would say staff and the development community, the boards, all the people that are part of that ecosystem are a little bit hamstrung with not having all the tools we need. And so I completely sympathize and agree with the comments that I've been hearing and concerns from the Historic Preservation Commission. You're not alone in that thought process. Maybe along those lines, the couple things that are happening at the elected level, the city commission level, you might have heard them talk about kind of these retreats or these work sessions that they're having. And our staff, for instance, staffs 13 boards and commissions. There's some 20, 30 some boards and commissions throughout the city. And so it's a lot to handle, right? It's a lot to manage, a lot of volunteers who are spending their time and energy, and as well as a lot of maybe mystery or lack of clarity on what everybody's roles are. And so with that, planning staff and the commissions and the leadership and administration have been talking about what exactly is that role of a liaison commissioner, kind of our elected appointed person who's assigned to this portfolio. How can we be more effective with community voice, public voice, democratic process, and how can staff be more effective as well? And so that's a lot of things to unpack. But one of those ways to kind of reset that grounding is what we call onboarding, or kind of resetting the table, if you will. So Nancy's been working with the elected officials, mayor, and the other officials are kind of taking this on as a mission. So we're a staff a little bit of I wouldn't say standby, we're kind of business as normal, but we're part of that conversation. And from what I hear from the elected officials, that's forthcoming over the next several months. So I would just say stay tuned as we kind of get more discussion. Definitely want our volunteers like you all part of that discussion. So coming back to the growth plan, we're about halfway through the process. And this is the first half of the process has really been our consultants digging through all the layers of government, codes, stakeholders, those that own land, our abutting jurisdictions. So really kind of trying to get the lay of the land and understand also financially how the city works. And then this is our plug for mid-October is really where we're kind of doing that. Everything mid-October starts that really public process, what we maybe have used to seeing with Go 2030 or some of our other activities where we have the big
Solicit input.
outreach, solicitation for input, et cetera. We're gonna have a heavy online presence as well as north side and south side, or midtown and south side open houses. And really where we're at right now is so we have, first of all, we have an advisory committee and a technical committee as part of these processes. And what we're doing next is kind of developing from what we've heard from this advisory and technical committee and stakeholder input to date. The consultants will be giving us test questions, if you will, and seeing how we respond and helping to shape that future, storyline of where we want to be as a future. And so we're right in the process of designing those engagement steps. And so hopefully you've been starting to see some emails come through from Kim, and very much want the Historic Preservation Commission engaged in this process, as well as your influences in your neighborhoods, et cetera, as part of that process. So I'm here to answer any questions. Maybe two last taglines. So as you know, Brad, who's been a great addition to our team, came on as part of the adoption of the Core Neighborhoods Plan. In that recommendation was needing more feet in the ground in our department to help with that neighborhood coordination. And so so that's a little bit of his role. So when projects happen in the core neighborhoods, whether it's HPC or other types of activities, he'll really become our resident expert of kind of what's happening. So that's in terms of engaging with the neighborhood associations, et cetera, as well. So think of him as kind of your conduit in communication to when, hey, I see this happening, what's going on, kind of person. And then I understand the Neighborhood Coalition is kind of coming back to life, if you will, after post-pandemic and kind of a new group of leaders. And so we're in the process of learning more about that as well. So there's going to be our number one goal is better and more fluent communication between, kind of city and community members and neighborhoods. And given your personal engagement with your neighborhoods and your volunteer work here, we very much look to you as helping us with that communication network. I'm here to answer any questions. I know I just kind of did a quick high level.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make one suggestion that I like the idea of some kind of a working group for this commission to go back and actually maybe redefine or reawaken to what our purpose is here. The commission was established in 1990, and there were no historic overlays for an 8-year period. So apparently there's work to be done here other than historic overlays. But I would suggest that we wait until November for anything like that, as 3 seats on this commission end in 5 weeks. And so there will be a different commission here November 1st.
I would like to add, first of all, Nicole, I really appreciate your comments, and I know that there are a huge array of things going on all at once. And so I don't envy your position here. Just a couple of comments from my position on this commission, where I've served for a fair amount of time, that perhaps just to keep in mind, things that I've had questions about over the years. And first of all, the first question is what actually is the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission? This is something that Jay has brought up in the past few meetings. Second, as I'm sure you know, some of our ordinances are quite old and sometimes not the clearest. It's sometimes difficult to know exactly what the requirements are in a historic overlay district. Third, the building permit process. This came up again today about what's the procedure in the city and when do things actually come to this commission. And following on that, the issue of enforcement. We have made decisions in the past where the applicant has, we've, say, denied something and the applicant has gone ahead and done it anyway, and nothing happens to the applicant. And also the actual structure of this commission. I think you brought up executive committee and so on. I think there are some questions that would be helpful for at least me to know about how our commission is structured. So those are things that have been on my mind about the Historic Preservation Commission for some time.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Nicole.
Okay. Any more comments? All right. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is October 17th, 2023.